Thank you very much, Dan, and thank you to all our panelists. We got to know each of your businesses a little bit with the bios, but I wanted to maybe give our audience a little more insight into your companies and what it is you do. So let's start with maybe a little more kind of on maybe what products you make, technology you use, production methods, markets you serve, things like that. Give us a little more detail on that piece of the equation. Megan, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So we are in plastics injection molding, so primarily contract manufacturing. And the markets that we serve are consumer products, industrial, healthcare, and medical, among many others. Some of the more recognizable products that we make are wall-mounted soap and sanitizer dispensers, cosmetic compacts, food storage containers, bathroom fans. There's a very wide variety.
Terry.
Thank you. First of all, it's great to be in a room of manufacturers. I just want to say that it feels wonderful. But HellermannTyton, we are injection molders as well. But we take a different track. We sell under our branded name, and the scope of our organization, we have 10 sites across North America, 3 facilities, manufacturing facilities. Our markets that we serve are the automotive market, truck, heavy equipment, renewable energies, and the non-automotive market is served through distribution. And we make, people will say the cable tie guys or the tie wrap guys, but we make highly engineered fasteners where there's a high cost of failure if you get it wrong, so we don't get it wrong.
Tracy.
Hi, Tracy Pearson. I work for Perlick Corporation. We're a 106-year-old manufacturer. We started right here in Milwaukee. We do have a second plant down in Monterrey, Mexico. We build commercial and residential bar equipment, and so if you have a party, it will definitely start with us.
It's the fun stuff, yeah. George.
We're mainly a distribution business, so we distribute rubber, metals, and plastics is our core business, but we've also, over the past 5 years, gotten to manufacturing fabrication of gaskets, hydraulic valves, and then we've also expanded in the last year just into software technology, so we provide RFID, real-time location software solutions that are based on inventory management and asset tracking.
Excellent. So ahead of the panel discussion, we had asked each of our panelists to share kind of what's the main area of uncertainty your business is facing now, and how are you trying to combat that? And if you look on page, I think it's 28 of the magazine, you got short responses there, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into those. Terry, your response pointed to the ongoing UAW strike against the big 3 automotive makers. I guess automotive isn't your only business. You noted in that response, diversified pool of customers. But how is that impacting operations? How is that impacting the business? How are you trying to deal with that as it's ongoing and we don't have an end in sight necessarily?
Yeah, thank you. So it requires, first of all, pre-planning and close communication with the customer who's only willing to tell you so much because they don't want to be out of parts either. So we have now layered on extra analysis, daily analysis, which I really rely on, as does the team, in terms of how our top customers, how their orders are versus the last 12 weeks. We have contingency plans. We thankfully in this case, have a healthy back order. So we are hoping that a lot of positive will come out of it because we will be in a really healthy on-time delivery state for the rest of our business. We also are in the industrial electrical market, and that balance helps us a lot. And in fact, we think if it is prolonged and you are solely in automotive and it is not good for your business, that we will be getting a lot of opportunity because we will be healthy, and we have all plans just to keep working and monitoring as it goes. But I think we're in a good state. But it requires a lot of extra planning, a lot of extra meetings, and making sure we do not build unintentional high inventories, and the team is on it.
You also mentioned there's the potential, depending on how long it goes on, you see a spike in demand once it does end. How do you think about planning for that? I mean, anyone could, usually a spike in demand, that's a good thing to be facing. Just how do you think about planning for that potential of a spike in demand and managing that?
Well, first of all, we are keeping all of our employees in terms of in the manufacturing plant. It took us truthfully a while to get back up to a really good state of skill and commitment after COVID, and we are not losing them. And then what we will do is we've increased our safety stock levels so that we can buffer that higher demand with the safety stock, and then we'll go business as usual.
Megan, shifting to you, your response, you mentioned kind of seeing inflationary pressures, dealing with high interest rates, same time customers being pressured to maybe look at different materials, different things like that. What are you seeing in terms of inflationary pressures in your business?
I'm sure we're not the only ones seeing inflationary pressures. So for many, the past year, we've been seeing it in materials, supplies, labor is one of the highest. But now we're starting to see it in insurance rates, property insurance, health insurance. It's everywhere. And higher interest rates are meant to combat that, right? So we understand why it's happening. But from a plastics industry perspective, our industry has just a not so good reputation over the past several years because of environmentalists and just the mainstream media saying all plastic is bad, right? When Terry and I know that it's not, right? There's no other durable, low-cost material that is available in the marketplace like plastic. So we're working with our customers to find a way to give them a sustainable manufacturing solution, whether that's building tools that have a hot runner system so there's no runner and there's less waste. There's also recycled materials, there's post-consumer recycled materials, there's all these different ways that we can try to help our customers use plastic in a more responsible way.
So you mentioned some of the solutions there, but what do those conversations look like with the customer in terms of trying to guide them to the solution you have, you feel will fit their needs? They're facing this external pressure, and the adage of the customer is always right, but they want to go down this path. You're like, well, no, what about this over here? What does that conversation look like? Because you're trying to guide them towards a solution you have for them.
So those are tough conversations, right? We're a contract manufacturer. You tell us what you're going to make, and we'll find the best way to make it. But in a lot of cases with the hot runner systems and tool design, they will pay more upfront cost, but as long as you have the volume, you will have a lower piece price. So there are gives and takes on that side, but it's really up to the customers and us showing them that there are all these different options for them if they're willing to spend a little more on the front end.
George, shifting to you, in your response talked about kind of shifting from being a product brand, to a more of a service, known as a service brand. What is that going to mean for you guys as a company? What is that going to look like as you try to evolve the business?
Yeah, I think that helps offset a lot of the uncertainties that we're facing, which are the inflationary pressures, the commoditization and globalization, and ironically for us, as we look to globalize, the reshoring efforts that have been made as well. But the philosophy is that if we can be more sought after because we're providing service solutions, then people aren't looking at our products as just a product or even as a commodity. And they're coming to us for advice. They're coming to us earlier on, and we're able to provide stickier solutions to them. So the big key is to be known as a service provider, which is why we've invested in software companies, which is why we've invested in technology, and mainly why we've invested in our people, to make them smarter, to make them more well-rounded so that they can talk to the customers better.
You also mentioned in that response kind of looking for new demand areas to kind of push into. What are maybe some factors you're looking at as you survey the market and say, here's a new area we could push into? is this a right one for us or a wrong one? Does it a fit? Is it something we should chase after? Something that's going to be too much effort? How are you evaluating those new opportunities?
Yeah, the unique thing for us as a distributor, first and foremost, is that our ability to service the customer and provide different products is just based off of the space and the expertise that we have with the sources that we have. So a lot of it is looking at what are the customers asking for? Are they asking for certain things? Do we see trends across that? And then looking internally and saying, do we have those manufacturing partner relationships, or do we have those capabilities in-house, or can we invest in them? We really pride ourselves on doing quarterly market research programs where we're asking those questions with our internal team. So taking a question like, can we expand into a wire harness market, for instance, because customers seem to be asking for that. And we go through a quarterly process and say, what would it look like? Do we have the partners? Do we have the relationships? What are the investments that we will need to make? And then we were able to make a go, no decision at the end of the quarter.
Do you have an audience question that came in for you already? Wondering what challenges you faced in acquiring 5 companies in 1 year, and what lessons did you learn about successfully onboarding new acquisitions?
I don't know yet. It was a lot, for sure. I think we found some unique opportunities over that time frame that presented themselves in what felt like the right moment, so we took a risk to be that aggressive. For us, most of the businesses that we bought were mom and pop shops, so there wasn't a lot of employee onboarding. It was mainly just onboarding businesses, software systems, if they even had them, and figuring out how to integrate that into our own. So it's been a challenge for sure. I think the biggest challenge for us is that because of that rapid growth, we created a middle management department basically overnight, and there were either people that were or weren't ready for that. And I think us as leaders in our organization, we might not have been as ready as we hoped for in terms of being able to train and onboard and keep them and grow them. So that's been the biggest struggle for us. It's just all of a sudden we went from having 5 departments to 11 or 12 departments. And now you have a specific person running marketing and a specific person running engineering, where that was a shared resource. That's been the biggest hurdle for us to overcome.
Tracy, your response pointed to that a lot of indicators that you relied on in the past, whether it's GDP, unemployment rates, different things, are maybe not as reliable predictor of future growth as they had been. At what point did you realize, come to that realization, the things we relied on before are not working the way we want them to? And then how did you make sure that wasn't just noise in the data or that kind of thing? And do you expect it to return, or how are you dealing with it?
One day at a time, because no, it's still there. I think we came out of COVID, for us specifically, and housing starts were down, everybody was hunkered down, and so we would always use housing starts as kind of or the sales data around housing to kind of predict our residential. Well, never would we ever expected everybody to be cooped up in their home, and the first thing they want to do is build an in-home bar, and so, which was great. So that was fantastic. But then that went soaring up, and it peaked or kind of flattened out, and now the housing market is not dictating, which it's kind of all over. So that's on our residential side. On the commercial side, it's kind of been all over the place on how people want to, spend their excess income or their fund money. And I think COVID has really changed how we work. I know many of us still have people who are remote versus, in the office. We have a hybrid for our office team members, but it has definitely taken the entertainment business to a whole new realm. And so that's what's been a really difficult indicator or predictor for us, because the commercial market for us is really kind of going all over the place, because people want to still be entertained, but they don't want to be entertained in that old, you go to your old standby, you love whatever it is, the Olive Garden or, traditional restaurants. They're looking for an experience, because I've been home all week. I want out, and I want a really fancy cocktail. And so it has really changed what we make and how we are approaching forecasting to it. So over 75% of our product is made to order in thousands of configurations. Because if you think about a bar or or an entertainment space, a stadium, we do a lot with stadiums. Everyone is different. And so being able to predict and understand what that is and how that's going to impact or come in has been our biggest challenge. We too rely on a lot of metrics and measurements, watching them daily. Sometimes it feels like hourly. I would say, without running on, what we did to really try to combat it is we actually brought our commercial and residential businesses together because we had been finding that to be blending more than it ever was pre-COVID. There were two very distinct lines, and now we're finding our residential product in the suites at the Fiserv Forum or at AmFam, and so that's something that was very different than it had ever been used before. So we're also using our plants that way, and we're on a very big, not only investment in automation to help us, but an investment in what we call dual sourcing, right? Being able to pull up and down in the different plants by making sure both of our plants can, hopefully, by the end of the next couple of years, at least build 80% of our base products in both facilities so that we can weather it better.
I think you also pointed to more, rather than relying on those indicators, more direct customer outreach and regaining some trust that maybe was lost over the course of the pandemic. How are you going about that in terms of, is it just kind of on a person-by-person basis, or do you have a system to it, or how are you tackling that?
I don't know if it's a real system, but I think that we have found that we relied very heavily on distributors and reps across the country pre-COVID. Coming out of COVID, we've lost so much knowledge on what, for us, it doesn't sound like very complicated equipment, but when you put a bar together, it can be very, very complicated. And we've lost the field-based knowledge from our former partners. They don't understand our value prop anymore. And so we're gearing up in our sales team. We have doubled the size of our sales team, moved them out geographically where they used to all kind of be home and travel. We now have them put in regions across the country to get our value proposition out there to the architects, designers, specifiers, owners who are looking or thinking about remodeling or building, a hospitality venue.
I'm going to shift to a perennial question I think at this manufacturing summit and in the industry in general, and that's workforce. Labor markets, unemployment rate's still low. Labor market's tight, maybe not quite as tight as it was a year or two ago when with the Great Resignation phase, but the demographics say we're going to keep having labor market challenges as baby boomers retire. I guess just generally, anything any of you are finding that is successful in terms of attracting and retaining the talent you need to run your businesses?
I can go.
Go for it.
So there is no secret sauce. That is definitive. What we have relied on and has worked for a very long time for us is our culture. And I know that's a buzzword, and we have always talked about it at our company that we have a great culture. But what does that mean? And about a year ago, we were going through the EOS process. And through that process, we helped discover what our values are. And we have a very distinct and relatable set of core values that we hire people to and we live every single day. And we will take a potential new hire through every single one of those core values, and we will tell them, this is who we are. And if you're not this, that's okay, but this probably isn't the right place for you. And I will say that every single person we've hired since we've done that is 100% the right fit. And that has helped us from making bad decisions and also just hiring because we know somebody or it's a friend. And we can always train somebody to do something, but if they're not the right fit, it's probably not going to work out.
That's a benefit on both sides too, right? It's good for the prospective employee to know up front, this is not going to be somewhere I'm going to want to be, and I can go on something else that is going to be fit. Does anyone have secret sauce or no?
There's no secret sauce, that's for sure. I think it's shifted to Megan's point, though. I think the attracting talent is less important in a lot of ways than the retaining of talent. And I think how people are looking for talent has also shifted, especially for us. So we're less reliant on finding industry experts or people that have experience in that specific role, and more, to Megan's point, looking for specific values in people, specific attributes, especially with the advancements in technology and AI and all that. Like, we can confidently know that we can train people to do things, but if they can't fit that environment or that culture, we're never going to have a successful environment. And then in terms of retaining talent, I think it's important to do, I don't necessarily call them the basics, but it's important to do things like 360 reviews and individualized growth plans, and make sure you're staying on top of those. But to me, what's even more important is creating spaces for people to express themselves, and creating spaces for people to thrive and grow in their own environments. So we've created Rising Stars boards, we've created emerging leader boards, where we're dedicating time and resources to training these people to become the next generations of our leaders. And then the final thing that I think is really, really important to retaining talent is what I call non-monetary gifts, which are bonus or raises that go into people's lives. And they can still be money related. One of the greatest examples we have is a warehouse employee of ours had a catalytic converter stolen out of the parking lot a couple years ago, and that's a big deal for that person to have to pay for that bill. And instead of giving them that money back in a bonus or making them go out and fix that themselves, we found a way to help them with that. And that goes a long way, because when you give someone a raise or a bonus, it just goes into a pile of cash. When they spend that, they can't relate it back to your company. But if you're able to do things to partner with them, it breeds that loyalty even more.
Tracy or Terry, any workforce magic bullets?
I don't know about magic bullets. I agree. I mean, I think we're doing the same thing that has been talked about, obviously building internal development and training plans, especially in the plant. We do post our core values on all of our walls and talk about it at every town hall meeting that we have. It's very, very important to us, as well as a family business, to live those family values every day. And it doesn't hurt if you put in a beer garden on the outside of
Unfair advantage.
Our employees love it. They usually use it for lunch, but it's really fun to have an outdoor space, I think, and give people the flexibility to meet in different spaces. We've done a lot with collaboration spaces, and it's really helped us with the them versus us, plant versus office. It's been really, really an awesome tool that we've put in.
And I would just say it sounds like we are doing similar things, and I'm thinking to build off of it. It's how we value our employees, building off of what you said, transparency and communication. We're very open about what's going well, what's not going well, and how we as a team are going to build toward it. In terms of attraction of employees, we have designated a role of early career specialist, so we can get to that person earlier and bringing them along the journey. And our employees are excited by growth, because growth equals opportunity. And we're excited about it. It has a certain energy. And, certain people fit in really well and others don't. And that is aligned to a set of qualities that we define. And in terms of retention as well, this is not just a job. I value our employees. I think they can see it. The managers value them. I don't care about how much work you put out that day, but you, the whole person, because not every day is a rock star day. And just that feeling, I think, really helps with retention. And then we set clear expectations. You have to perform, but we're very clear about it, and I think that's what helps our business quite a bit.
George, you mentioned the idea of kind of individual growth plans, and I don't know if each of you have kind of your own versions of these, where each individual person and kind of what do they see, what do they want to become, where do they want to go, which is great for the individual, but I could imagine could cause some headaches for your HR department if everyone's got their own individual plan going. So-and-so wants to do this, so-and-so wants to. How do you manage maybe that component of it and make sure, yes, individualized, but also that we're all kind of pushing in the same direction?
Yeah, it's a really interesting struggle, because if you start giving employees the positions that they want, all of a sudden you might have 80 or 100 employees in 100 different positions, and everyone has a special deal, and that's not how a company can grow. So it's really about balancing their desires with the positions that are available. And a simple shift in philosophy that we do when looking for new roles is not to necessarily hire for the job that feels like the natural recourse. So I have all these issues on my quality side, so I need a quality technician. We look at it more what are the job functions that are causing stressors, and how does that fit with what those people want and from their own advancements, and does that create a role? And usually that works a whole lot better, and you end up fitting people into positions that may not be perfect for them, but fit with at least the career trajectory that they want to go on for that time.
Any other thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I would just jump in. We have these conversations and also now escalated training with the managers, which is coming through our organizational development role. I think we've all been in a situation where a manager might coach an employee that they're wonderful, then the next day they want to fire them. And what happened? So we're creating a standard, we're creating career paths. At no time is anyone ever guaranteed a job, but we'll build on you as a leader through different training programs externally and internally that we offer. And then when opportunity comes up, we make sure people say, hey, this is available for you if you want, or you come in and apply for it. And in the plant especially, there's a very concrete roadmap. You start as a packaging operator. If you want to be a material handler, that's your path. Let's take you there. And it's about no promises, but plenty of capabilities building and making sure that we make the leaders rise up, both individually or as managers.
The one thing that I'll add to that is that in a smaller to medium-sized company, sometimes you don't have as many of those middle manager or top level like leadership positions. And especially in our company, we have people with very long tenure, so there just aren't as many of those available positions for many years. So we've found creative ways to give people more job responsibilities or a more elevated role to help them learn in their career, but maybe not take on that manager role. So it might be getting involved in a continuous improvement project, or training a new employee, or going to a specialized training to become an expert in a certain area that we're lacking in. So trying to find creative ways to give people that career path without necessarily giving them a new job title.
Yeah, that's really good, because not everyone wants to manage people either, and not everyone is a manager of people. So I really like the idea of what's called the philosophy of manager of things, and finding ways to give people new challenges, maybe a new title, maybe not, but give them different challenges that allow them to train or teach, or because I think the worst thing that you can do in any organization is, or one of them, there's probably many of them, but in this instance, the worst thing you can do is just push people into positions of management of people because they feel like they're ready for it, or push someone out of it that was doing really well and push them into something that they're not ready for. So I really like that creativity can either be in a role itself or in extra job responsibilities.
Does anyone else have there's an audience question of how do you motivate your workforce with something other than money? And George, you're kind of speaking to this a little bit. Anyone else have anything on that front of motivational things that don't show up necessarily on a paycheck?
I would say one of the things that we're doing in kind of aligns with what we were just talking about is really looking at all the different projects, right? We've been trying to reinvent ourselves in a lot of different ways, not only in our new product categories, new product channels, and so we've been giving our employees the opportunity to learn some new skills or get involved in something different that may be outside of their job scope title by being involved in some of those projects, especially around innovation or lean projects that are going on, things that happen a lot but in different pockets, and bringing different people into them so that you have more people who have that kind of experience in their back pocket. And it's been very good. People get excited to try do something different.
I realize I just asked about non-monetary things, but I did a follow-up that was from Megan. When you provide these additional opportunities for employees, do you feel obligated to then also have a pay increase tied to that?
So there is a line in all job descriptions that says other duties as assigned. Okay, so that's the first thing. But it really depends on the situation, right? I mean, it depends on the employee, their levels of experience, what they're learning. But when they first take on those, that happens once in a while, and it just really depends. So, but to the other question about non-monetary, this is a very simple one, but it goes a very long way, is just to go out in the plant and have a conversation with someone and encourage them, right? I mean, or send someone an email and say, you are doing an awesome job. Please keep up the good work. And I don't do it as often as I should because there's a lot going on. But when you do it, that person appreciates it so much because you went out of your way to recognize them and encourage them. And I've gotten emails back from people saying, oh, thank you, that's what I needed today, right? And that makes me feel like I need to do this more, right? So, but it's non-monetary. All it is recognizing their hard work and encouraging them to keep it up.
Goes to Terry's point about caring about the whole person. And not every day is going to be a rock star day, but caring about the whole person shows support. One more audience question on workforce, and we'll move on because we could probably spend our entire time on workforce, given the number of times I've talked about it with manufacturers. But questions ask us to dig into a little bit about why is retention more important than just purely the attraction part of it? Is competition stealing talent so the pain is felt more, or is it the loss of institutional knowledge that when you lose people? Why is retention so important?
I can start. I think they're both important because it's very important in our company as we've really rapidly grown to use the experience that we have, but to hire from the outside as well with some key positions because they can bring a whole new viewpoint, a whole new skill set, and then we bring that together. So I think retention, of course, is important, but honestly, sometimes people leave and maybe the organization has outgrown them sometimes, and it feels bad at the moment, but then we bring someone in who takes us to a whole new level. So it's that healthy balance, and not every leaver, even of their own choice, is a bad move for the organization.
Any more thoughts on retention? Importance?
I just say that I think it's more important than attracting talent for me personally because the cost to hire someone new, and it's a balance, right? This isn't a black and white topic. It's more like a dimmer switch on a light, right? You know, which side of the equation are you pushing that switch to? And I would argue on the side of retention because of the cost of onboarding. It's always healthy and good to have new employees. I agree with you there because they challenge and they provide different perspective. And to your point, Terry, like all of a sudden you're like, wow, I thought this position could only do X, and someone new comes in and now it can do 5 other things on top of that. And that is key. But when you find those right people, you really do want to invest in them and retain them, just because all the things you said, all those factors are huge. The knowledge, the time spent of onboarding, and not even just the time spent onboarding them, but every other employee that has to train them. That's taking away from their ability to do their job.
I'm sure it shifts from year to year too. You know, some years attraction may need to be the top priority. Other years you've built a good team, now we got to hold on to them and help them grow. So it probably evolves from year to year as well. Let's shift gears to a conversation around kind of some of the things in the manufacturing industry. We hear a lot about reshoring, nearshoring, onshoring. I'm probably forgetting like 15 different versions of this buzzword. We saw a lot of supply chain challenges over the last couple of years. Technology, we mentioned AI a couple times, but that whole other piece of the equation. Let's start with the reshoring piece. Are we actually seeing examples of reshoring or nearshoring or work coming back from overseas to the U.S. or at least to North America? Yes?
We are. I mean, it's definitely COVID taught us that supply chain can really cripple your business. And so while we appreciate, our vendors and partners anywhere in the world, we have a very concerted effort that we started about a year and a half ago to, we're calling it insourcing. So we're not only trying to bring it from offshore to onshore, we're trying to bring it back in our own plant, especially around fabricated. So our goal is to hopefully increase our reliance on ourselves by bringing our in-house fabricated parts up almost 35% through technology and through the expansion of what we're doing in the plant. So we're less reliant on any vendors. We'll never get rid of all of them, offshore or in, we know that. But the more we can do ourselves, will hopefully prevent some of the pains that we went through.
Megan?
Yes, we're definitely seeing reshoring. We have a program right now that we're in the middle of launching that was previously made in Asia, and another very large program launching next year that everything was made in Asia and now will all be sourced here. And what we're hearing is it's reliability of supply, right? You can make $0 on 0 parts, right? If you don't have anything here to sell, you're not going to make any money. And the cost of freight costs for sea freight, and that it's very fluctuating all the time, is very unreliable. And the United States is the largest consumer economy in the world. So why not make your parts where they're going to be consumed, in the United States? So our customers are telling us they don't want to hold as much inventory, which is better for manufacturing in the United States, and they want to know that they're going to have their product on time.
Others?
Yeah, we've noticed, especially with our customers, when they bring the business back, especially with large wire harnesses, they're bringing it back closer, whether it was made in Asia or another area of the world. They're bringing it back and they want us to source it, whether it's logistics or port strikes or tariffs or risk, just, political risk, what could happen next, and we see that trend.
I think you see diversification. I don't know if it's necessarily onshoring, but I think there are companies that have noticed that they're so overly heavily reliant on Asia as their partner that they're trying to diversify that risk. And so there are a lot of complexities to getting out of Asia. I mean, the reshoring effort is probably a good effort, but for the products that we sell, we're not seeing that quite as much, but seeing more opportunities to sell globally in Asia as well as in North America, because companies want to diversify that risk. They want to have a plant in Mexico or the United States or China or Europe to not be, as you guys said, that geopolitical risk or the sourcing risk. So,
digging a little bit on each of your supply chains, Tracy mentioned 35% increase in what you're fabricating in-house. How have you gone about looking at bringing that insourcing process, thinking about, okay, what can we do, what do we have to rely on others for? What's been that process look like to really look at that closely and make the right decisions about what should we do, what should we rely on our partners for?
I think it's based a lot on the automation that we've brought in and what our capabilities are to make sure it doesn't slow down our production capabilities. That's probably number one. Number two is, which vendors or which, sourced parts caused us the most pain. So we prioritized it based on pain. It's probably a good way to start. And I think that's really just, we kind of look at everything that makes sense, because most of our stuff is made to order. We carry very little stock, but we have to carry a lot of parts and fabrication parts stock. And so it's making sure that the stuff that we know we're going to use often, the more of that we can bring in versus some of the one-off custom towers or different pieces like that we would outsource, because to have that capabilities to do 1 or 2 a year makes no sense.
Any of y'all's changes in your own supply chains? How are you thinking about whether it's redundancies or different things, lessons from the past 18, 24 months that have shown up in how you're sourcing things for your companies?
I could start, is that I think, before COVID, you got used to your suppliers. They were good. You could market test them. Things were fine. And you have many other things to worry about. But I think since COVID now, every major supplier, a must-do is who else can do it. And if they're in one region of the world, how can we get it to another region of the world? And we infiltrate that into our quoting and supply chain mitigation. It just put higher emphasis on that need, and now it's part of our daily practice.
I would agree. Diversifying who you have, make sure you sole source nothing.
We've seen the exact same, right? Resiliency, multiple suppliers for all risky items, and just making sure that you continuously have very good relationships with those suppliers, so if you have to call in a favor, they like you.
An audience question here on the reshoring and kind of what's the criteria for what works, what makes sense. Megan, maybe you can speak to this. What's the mix? Is it low complexity, high volume, hard to make things? The affordability of making things in the U.S. Does it require a niche capability, lights out capability? Kind of basically, do we have what it takes to reshore things here in the U.S.? You're doing it, so apparently at least some of it.
So I would say it's higher volume, higher complexity, automation, right? So we're building automation cells to reduce labor because labor is variable and it's expensive. And as long as you have the volume to support it, a customer will invest in automation for their product line. So those are the biggest things, because a lot of reshoring is going to Mexico. But that is, from what I'm seeing, more of the low complexity, higher labor, and that's really what we're known for in the United States, is higher complexity and automation.
Any other thoughts on what does come back? What's the kind of criteria? That's right. We talked about automation. That was one of the questions I had here is the current role of automation in your business, and how do you see it evolving into the future? I mean, are we just going to see more and more robotics? Is there a kind of an upper bound on that that it's not going to go past? What's kind of the future for automation in manufacturing in southeastern Wisconsin?
For us, it's critical. Being a 106-year-old manufacturing facility, I'm sure you can imagine that we have quite a few pieces of equipment in there that definitely outdate me, which sometimes feels good. But it doesn't necessarily make for great efficiencies. So we're looking at as much automation as makes sense, not to reduce our labor so much, but to simplify our processes and hopefully create better jobs. Now, we've been able to hold our labor steady, which has been great for us, so not having to reduce, but getting a lot more output through the use of automation. So our capacity has definitely benefited dramatically.
Automation has been key for us since the late 80s, and we have our own design build automation department, and we do it, yes, for labor savings, but more for increased quality. We do it for safety sometimes, and it's just a integral part of who we are. And where it can go is based on how we can use data, AI, and all those great technologies to pare that down and to apply it to the plant. And how else and where else we can take it, I think it's a new horizon, and it's understanding where to start in a manageable bit and creating that roadmap.
Yeah, if you're not embracing technology or you're not advancing your own capabilities, you're going to fall behind. I mean, that's our biggest uncertainty, right, is the risk of falling behind our competition. And it's interesting because I think when you advance your technology, you're actually just shifting your labor needs. And so you might save labor in one place, but the way that you keep growing is by shifting that labor to another place. And so you can get different, better, smarter, more growth-hungry, potentially employees that, as long as you're willing to continue to invest that shift in resources, I think you can accelerate your growth in both the fact that now your product has a higher quality, or your processes are faster so you can cut your costs, but you can also impress your customers by having a better workforce that they see as more reliable, more flexible, more competent.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything that you guys said. We also design and build all of our own automation, and that helps give that career path for people on our shop floor to become technicians, to design, service, do maintenance on those pieces of automation. So while we're reducing one type of labor, we're upskilling another, and I think that's more impactful than anything.
There's actually an audience question I just got of how have you seen the skill requirements shift as you embraced automation? But I mean, I guess, yeah, that what you said, you're shifting towards a more skilled section going forward.
With that, you can send these individuals to the local technical college to get that training. They have hands-on training, and the local technical colleges are great partners to upskill our employees.
Terry, you mentioned the data and AI as kind of where does this go from here? And I'm guessing ChatGPT is not running your automation on the plant floor, especially given its potential to hallucinate and who knows what. But I guess where do you see the applications for AI? And you mentioned kind of identifying the right places to start. How are you thinking about that piece of it? Like where are the right places for us to start looking at this?
So we are looking at it, inserting it into our sales process. So we need to make sure that we have the right data set to begin with, and it's probably a challenge for everybody, clean data. And so how can we choose a project where our data is clean and that we can potentially automate more of our quoting, or automate other angles of our sales process, or even with product recommendations. So on the front end of the business, because here we've talked a lot about our manufacturing processes, but we all sell and we all have sales forces, so incorporating it there. And then continuing to advance data vision systems so that we can get the data, we can institute more machine learning, and again, increase our quality and proficiency by using data, and that's already going on in the plant. And I think, it's about where to start, get your data set, and realize it can apply to all areas of your business, not just on your manufacturing plant floor.
Is it something you have to encourage people to go ahead, play around with AI tools and things like that, or are they're...
Well, this is what I know. If you don't have the data services available, they'll find them themselves. And next thing you come up, and maybe IT is not thrilled with it because it might not be the way they would have preferred. But if the data isn't structured and we don't provide a platform, it will happen without you. And then the best thing to do is to have an overarching structure. It's part of what we call our aptitudes at HellermannTyton, that we will advance in data, and it's up to management to provide that framework. And then we, then we'll let people go, so it's not just, I don't want to say useless brainstorming, but brainstorming that's never going to end up anywhere. So you have to provide a framework.
Any other thoughts on AI and data in the business?
We're using it kind of in a rudimentary to support our customer experience. So automating our telephones, talking to our customers, routing them to the right areas. We've started putting QR codes on all of our equipment, so even a bartender can submit a help ticket if they have a refrigeration or a unit that's gone down.
and it'll get routed back to us so we can dispatch installers out. So we're trying to use it to assist and bring people to data that we too are scrubbing really hard to make sure it's good, right? You know, from installation manuals to self-help videos.
All right, we'll shift kind of our last 10 minutes here to some questions around the economy and where things may be headed into the future. So we've seen the inflation, we've seen the rising interest rates to combat that. How have those two things impacted your business? Has one been more of a hit than the other, and which one do you see being having more impact going forward?
Okay, I'll start again. So I already touched on the inflation, but for interest rates, they rose so quickly, right? And they're definitely not going to fall that quickly. So for our business, we've had to fundamentally change how we do business because of high interest rates. We have been around for over 40 years, but we've been Sussex IM for the past 13 years. And during that time, we have only had low interest rates. So what we provide to our customers is a turnkey solution. And we will make the plastic parts, but we will also source all of the components, fully assemble, and send the product to a distribution center. So we hold a lot of inventory for our customers, be it raw materials, components, and finished goods. So for those current customers, we've had to restructure how we do business with them because it's a lot of inventory to hold. And for future customers and new customers, we have to negotiate those supply agreements very carefully to make sure that we are not liable for more inventory than the value that we're adding with the plastic parts. So it's very important up front now to have those discussions with our customers and make sure we're all set before we start purchasing product.
Well, I would just say that with us, interest rates, as it affects end user demand, are they going to buy as many cars? Banks are tightening up their lending. How does that affect industrial machinery? How does that affect car manufacturing and loan defaults? I think we're all, having been scarred from that in the past, are always watching it. That big short guy, what's he going to say now? But I think the thing is that something to keep an eye on. And then as far as inflation, being able to pass it along only creates, a tightening, and it's hard to pass everything along. So our continuous improvement in our plants have helped us be healthy and is a good balance.
Interest rates have been the hardest for us compared to inflation. We rely on our manufacturers, our customers, to develop new products. So if the interest rates are high, they're spending less resources to do so, whether that's investing in new factories or new ways of doing things, new design. They're delaying those things. Our sales cycle is already long to begin with. It's probably 18 to sometimes 36 months before we'll see production volumes for the stuff that we sell. And so just that delay makes it that much harder for us.
Yeah, we have the same thing with long lead times, for especially some of the construction projects of a stadium that could be years out. And so we're getting a lot more inquiries on, locking your prices now, which of course you can't do, and a lot of people wanted to go back to prompt pay discounts and, just things we haven't talked about a lot in the last few years are suddenly becoming part of the conversation again.
Audience question that goes back to our conversation on automation, but probably ties in also to the conversation on interest rates in terms of investing in the business. It's a tool that any of your competitors can leverage automation to. How do you differentiate and avoid an arms race with automation investments, was the audience question.
I don't know if you have to. If you're investing in the right equipment, the intent is to look at what your competition is doing, where your best chances for opportunities are, But really, the decisions you're making to invest in equipment are to advance to your own business. If you're worried about advancing technology or advancing your own stuff with just the fear of being beat out by your competition, you're thinking about your technology the wrong way. You got to look internally in terms of what technology is best for your own growth, and then I think you avoid those arms races, because now you're providing, again, that going back to what we talked about earlier, that service to a customer. You're able to say, I didn't buy X equipment because that's what everyone else is doing. I bought it because it matters to both you and me.
And I'm not so sure we know what our competitors are doing. I know they don't offer me many tours. I don't know why. But I do know that we will automate, just as George said, because it benefits our plant, it benefits our quality, and that's what we'll do.
Any of you thinking about those investments a little differently because of high interest rates? That was an audience question. Leasing versus buying, that kind of thing?
I think you look at the ROI, right? I mean, right now the ROI is just shorter than it has been in the past because of interest rates and that sort of thing. But as long as you're looking at your ROI and if something is going to pay for itself in a year, why wouldn't you do it? So that's what we look at.
We do too. We develop, at least a 5-year roadmap for our automation and our technology, and then we look at each of those projects as they're coming up based on ROI and how we plan to fund them.
Kind of wrapping up on the economy specifically, maybe what's the current state of call it the market or the economy in your industry and those you serve, and what's your kind of outlook as we head into 2024? I believe we're already almost halfway through the decade, but here we are. Time, kind of fuzzy back there for a few years. So how are you looking at, what do you see in the market over the next year or so? George, why don't you start us off? We won't make
we slowed down at the beginning of this summer, so that's when we really started to see that downturn. A lot of our customers had bullwhipped their inventory, and so they bought a lot of our products. People don't really want to be without O-rings or fasteners. They'd rather have those on the shelf, and they were willing to make those investments. So people bought a lot, and we didn't necessarily lose product. They don't need anymore until they work through it. So we've been seeing a slowdown for about 6 months now. I personally see the bottom for our business in December or January, especially depending on some of our major customers and what their order patterns look like, and their forecasts look a little bit stronger in 2024. So we'll know a whole lot more in the next month or two as these orders start coming in.
Yeah, I think for us, it depends on which part of our market that we're looking at. The residential market is definitely slower and has been pretty much for this whole year, but our commercial side of our business actually has been very healthy, and as we talk with our partners and projects that we're bidding and quoting now that are about 12 months out, we're feeling a little bullish about where we see the next 12 months at least, but it gets very, very fuzzy after that.
I feel great about it, to be honest. I think with our product line, we're able to do a strategy where, first of all, we say which markets are growing, where can we offer value, which markets are being commoditized, because we're probably not going to spend a whole lot of money innovating for those markets. And then it's about innovation. And whatever the markets are doing, we are soaring because we're adding more value. We help people save labor. We help reduce inventories, all of that good stuff. But then we think, what's our next horizon in that market or a new one? And so, the markets we've chosen to participate in is a car market. That'll be healthy through 24. Renewable energies, we know what government subsidies have done, and those benefits, as well as industrial automation. And I think it's about how you strategize, what you choose to do, what you choose to pull back from, and what you choose not to participate in at all.
So we're similar to George. We're seeing a bit of a slowdown. But our sales cycle is very long, so we have a lot of impending projects that will keep us healthy through 24, and we're probably at the start of a recession in our industry, but I don't expect it to last more than a year. And as long as you have a healthy balance sheet and you have new programs coming and you keep innovating, we should be fine.
That's a good summary. The balance sheet,
Figure it out.
innovating, figure it out. We'll be fine. Sounds good. We are out of time. We've got to get Terry to senior night. So thank you very much to all of our panelists, and thank you to everyone for being here and for all the questions you guys sent in. Really appreciate it. Let's give our panel a hand.